In 2017, Alan Sear, a famous American psychic, published his prophecy about the rain of brimstone and fire that would allegedly hit Earth in November 2027. This text was the first to mention the word strafe. The strafe refers to the events when shards of Object X bombarded the Earth. Universally accepted as the greatest disaster in human history, the strafe affected dozens of countries and regions all over the world. The media never gave Alan Sear's prediction much attention, but Sear managed to gather a handful of followers, which started the Strafe Witnesses movement. The Witnesses have been preparing for the strafe for nearly 10 years. On November 27, 2027, a gigantic asteroid-sized object suddenly appeared in Earth's orbit. The media dubbed it Object X and demanded explanations from NASA, ESA, and other aerospace agencies. However, before scientists could come up with any hypothesis, Object X exploded, and its shards headed for the Earth's surface. The meteors hit dozens of cities, regions, and countries. The vast majority of satellites were disabled. Earth was affected by geomagnetic and atmospheric anomalies for several days in a row. Ironically, no one was prepared for it except the Strafe Witnesses. Despite severe casualties, humanitarian chaos, and destruction of infrastructure, the most important and dangerous aftermaths of the strafe were the spreading of crystalline and impact zones. Impact zones are territories that suffered the fall of the largest fragments of Object X. Currently, an area is recognized as an impact zone if the mass of the crystalline in it has reached critical values, and the voice is actively creating constructs. There are several dozen such locations around the globe. Typical impact zone resembles a crater with a clearly visible ridge. The diameter of these craters varies from a few hundred meters to several kilometers. Within this area, any V-negative organism is subject to the aggressive effects of red salt. The external perimeter, the so-called blast wave area, can stretch out for dozens of kilometers. The environment here is not so aggressive, and one can even find occasional remains of civilization. Strafers usually deploy their bases within blast wave areas. Some of the noteworthy impact zones are Dubai, the largest urban agglomeration in the world to suffer from the strafe directly; the Tyrrhenian Sea, which includes a number of small islands known for its volcanic activity, which fuels the growth of the crystalline. According to intel reports, strafers created a concentration camp within the zone, where they conduct experiments on humans and glassheads. Canmore, the largest impact zone on the planet, located in the US-Canadian border, known for its diversity of crystalline affected flora and fauna. Shogard's biggest field research station is deployed in the zone. Bermudan, located on the ruins of semi-flooded islands in the Atlantic. According to intelligence reports, Strafe Witnesses' headquarters is located in the zone. Alan Sear himself may be hiding here. The Faroe Islands, the only artificial zone. It was the result of an emergency crash of Shogard's stratospheric vessel, which was carrying samples collected from Object X. So what is this Object X we've mentioned a few times? The Object X is an astronomical entity located in the Lagrange point L1 of the Earth-Moon system, at the distance of 315,000 kilometers from Earth. The object suddenly appeared in its current location on November 27, 2027, and was immediately destroyed by gravitational collision. Smaller shards fell onto the Earth's surface and became the cause of the strafe. Larger shards halted in the geostationary orbit due to their significant mass. They make the current appearance of the object. Since Object X appeared suddenly out of nowhere, this implies that the object possesses the means of faster-than-light travel. The object is obviously related to the crystalline that started spreading across the planet after the strafe. The scientific community has two main theories regarding the origin of the object, and they are not mutually exclusive. According to the first theory, Object X is a shard of a planet that was previously terraformed by the crystalline. Led by the voice, the shard approached Earth to launch a new stage of the reproduction cycle here. The second theory states that the reproduction is not the only goal of the crystalline, and its overmind is a much more profound entity, beyond our imagination. According to this theory, the crystalline is the most advanced life form in the galaxy, and it hopes to shape all other life forms in its image. Thus, Object X is an interstellar vessel rather than a planetary shard. It was designed by the Voice and built by the inhabitants of the planet previously transformed by the crystalline. The Shellguard is planning to send a piloted expedition to the object to clarify all questions regarding its substance, contents, and nature. However, until such expedition brings the answers, the object will remain a speculative topic that can perhaps be solved with the assistance of the former members from the Heidelberg Group. The Heidelberg Group, also known as the Heidelberg Four, was a research group at the European Molecular Biology Institute in Heidelberg, Germany. The group was studying the crystalline during the first weeks after the strafe. They made several fundamental discoveries about the nature of the crystalline and its impacts on humans and other species. The group was formed on December 13, 2027. Under the direction of the World Health Organization and headed by Professor Gerhard Schloss, together with the professor, Drs. Karen Velasquez, Matthew Sullivan, and Anne-Marie Vickers joined the group. In January 2028, under strict quarantine, the scientists examined samples of crystal-like substance obtained from 5 different impact zones. Professor Schloss developed a hypothesis about an alien, non-protein life form featuring silicon and oxygen biochemistry. He introduced the term crystalline to the scientific community. In February 2028, Schloss joined the First Ascent, a military expedition to the Dubai impact zone, and never returned. After the professor's decease, the Heidelberg Group was disbanded. Currently, the former members of the group are considered the world's top experts on the crystalline, but the group's members all had different futures. Dr. Matthew Sullivan left the group and went on to seek private funding for the crystalline research. He founded the CPL Corporation and started to gather investments. Sullivan managed to convince the authorities that the crystalline could be used for technological advancements. He cooperated with Shellguard in order to gain access to otherwise restricted impact zones. Dr. Hein Vickers argued that the crystalline could not be fully comprehended with scientific methods alone. In that regard, she broke off with her colleagues and joined the Strafe Witnesses, where she was offered a leading position in the occult science branch. Vickers seeks a way to adapt the human race to a symbiotic coexistence with the crystalline for the benefit of both species. Dr. Karen Velasquez discovered the V gene and developed the groundbreaking V gene identification test. This discovery allowed for detecting V-positive personnel in militaries all over the world, which secured the influx of military specialists to the newly formed Shellguard. It was no surprise that Velasquez was appointed head of Shellguard R&D. She is determined to rid the Earth of the crystalline and bring back the world to its former state. The V gene that was discovered by Dr. Karen Velasquez is a recessive property of DNA, which provides immunity against the effects of red salt. This is a passive immunity, and it does not allow for extracting an antigen or creating a vaccine. V gene is extremely rare, found in less than 0.0001% of the global population. The gene activates once in several generations, so if a parent has it, the child will not necessarily also have the gene. It must be noted that the V gene does not make a person immune per se, it only counters the long-term effect of molecular transformation. V gene was discovered by Dr. Karen Velasquez in May 2028 after examining the surviving members of the First Ascent. Nathan Phillips, a lieutenant commander of the U.S. Navy and eventually commander-in-chief of Shellguard, was one of the first humans to be confirmed V-positive. When the Vancouver Memorandum was signed, the V-gene identification test became mandatory in the armed forces of 35 countries. It allowed for detection of dozens of V-positive personnel over a short period of time. As a result of this, V-gene divided humanity into 2 unequal parts: V-negative, which were prone to crystalline transformation, and V-positive. Only V-positives can safely operate within impact zones without the risk of infection. These people are humanity's only hope to win the battle against the crystalline. The Strafe Witnesses consider V-positives as a rollback to the previous imperfect stage of human evolution. One of their goals is to eradicate all detected V-gene carriers. The Vancouver Memorandum. The Vancouver Memorandum is an international agreement signed on March 7, 2028, as a result of the Global Security Summit held in Vancouver, Canada. The agreement was ratified by heads of 35 countries, and led to introduction of mandatory V-gene identification tests in the majority of the world's militaries. These are main key provisions of the memorandum. Impact zones are treated as exclusion zones with no state jurisdiction. Impact zones are considered biohazardous, uninhabitable territories. Countries that have impact zones within their borders undertake to make every effort to prevent public access to these territories. Strafe witnesses are a knowledge and extremist group that can be subject to military operations. The member countries are to contribute to creating an international research organization that would aim to solve the crystalline problem globally. The main outcome of the Vancouver Security Summit was the creation of Shellguard, an international organization that would deal with the consequences of the strafe. Mandatory V-gene identification test has been introduced into military forces of the summit member countries. Detected V-gene carriers were prompted to join Shellguard. Shellguard is an international military and research organization tasked with resolving the crystalline problem on a global scale. Shellguard comprises V-positive specialists from various countries and backgrounds. The declared goal of the organization is to eliminate the crystalline and restore the planet to its pre-strafe condition. The Shellguard was founded in April 10, 2028. And has roughly around 500 members. The High Command is composed by 4 key members to the organization. These 4 members being Nathan Roger Phillips, the commander of Shellguard's operative branch, a seasoned soldier, war hero, and former member of the U.S. Special Warfare Command. He was one of the first people proved to be V-positive. It was Phillips' testimony that gave an impetus to comprehensive scientific research of the crystalline and ultimately led to the founding of Shellguard. Karen Velasquez, the head of Shellguard's R&D. She is in charge of biological safety and first-hand research of all material and data recovered by the operatives in the impact zones. Dr. Velasquez is a former member of the Heidelberg Group and one of the 3 most renowned crystalline experts. Under her watchful guidance, Shellguard hopes to unravel all the tangled mysteries of the crystalline and find a way to stop it for good. Mady Ann Hughes, the head of communication and electronic warfare at Shellguard. She acts as a dispatcher for the strike teams, coordinates ground operations. She is responsible for preparing briefings, mapping routes, arranging evacuations, and in exceptional cases, providing UAV fire support. Mady joined Shellguard to help the strafe afflicted and prevent field casualties the best she can. And lastly, Arden Lawford, the head of procurement, whom we do not have much information on as of right now. The Shellguard is an organization created with the task of countering the crystalline threat. Through its V-gene positive soldiers and military specialists, they combine their efforts to find a way of stopping the crystalline for good. But will they succeed? I guess we'll find out.